Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. I am your host and beat reporter, and today we are talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars and how there's one big free agent that I think they should take a swing at. Now, I'd like to start this by saying I believe there's a whole strategy that the Jaguars should do this offseason. And in many ways, I even believe it's the strategy the Jaguars will do. Essentially, I think the Jaguars, in their most ideal of scenarios, what kind of franchise I think they're transitioning to. I think, obviously, they want to draft and develop. Made a ton of picks last year, slated to make even more this year. They, it's not like they were opposed to rookies playing key roles. I mean, a lot of the rookies they took obviously had to play backup roles because of just how the roster was formatted. But they trusted rookies in several spots last year. So I think clearly they want to go in the draft and develop direction. And I think in doing so, they're going to do everything they can to get more picks, which to me says, I think if it's not this year, next year, but it really is set up to be this year, features them playing the comp pick system. The Rams did a great job of it, using it to kind of give them a boost when they were making trades and moves that were losing them picks. And essentially, to do it, though, you need to have the boldness, the courage, and really, I'd say the determination to be okay with having some guys leave. I mean, that takes discipline. To let guys like potentially Devin Lloyd leave, Travis Etienne leave, Monteric Brown, Greg Newsome. You can still be active in free agency while letting these guys go. It's just you're playing on a little different bit of a playing field. I think, obviously the Jaguars, if teams go out there and sign Devin Lloyd to a big deal and sign Etienne to a big deal and sign Newsome and Buster Brown, the Jaguars would obviously be set up pretty well for comp picks. Now, the Jaguars could still be aggressive. They could still sign, like second tier and second day type guys. Kind of similar in a way to what they did last year. It's just they kind of did it more so on the first day. And they can set themselves up to be in the situation where they're not losing picks or anything like that in terms of the comp pick formula. I think that's where they would love to be. If they don't do it this year, I'm not sure. Maybe they do it next year. Because like I said, it takes a discipline to not spend in free agency. But you look at how they spent in free agency last year. 4 guys they paid who were clear starters in Jordan Lewis, Eric Murray, Robert Hainsey, and Patrick McCary. McCary was their most expensive guy. Lewis obviously got, at the time, the top deal for a slot corner. Murray didn't get a nothing deal, neither did Hainsey. But they didn't break the bank. I don't believe that McCary even ranked top 30 in total value and free agent contracts given out last March. So they didn't break the bank, even though that they did sign guys early on the first day. Even though they signed several. They also signed De'Ami Brown for $10 million. They signed Chuma Edoga. They signed Fred Johnson. They made several moves, Nick Mullins, Hunter Long, Johnny Munt. And these are the kind of level of free agents I expect them to mostly focus on. Now, there were still some specific free agents who can be a higher tier, who I can see them going after. But I think those guys are mostly going to be the ones who are released by teams as opposed to have their contracts expired. When a guy's released by a team and it's not a method of, him signing a new deal in free agency because his contract just ran out, then they don't count toward the comp pick formula. So I could 100% see the Jaguars putting a focus on those guys. Because like I said, that could allow you and allow them to then be able to be aggressive and sign, kind of top flight level guys without messing with that comp pick formula, which gets them more picks next year. And when you get picks, you can make trades. You can be more aggressive. All that to say, I do think that there is a first-tier free agent or one of the early tiers who they should go after. It's not a great pass rushing group. It's like Trey Hendrickson, who's coming off more injuries and is getting older, Jalen Phillips, and then not much else at the pass rusher position. John Franklin Myers gets drafted by the Los Angeles Rams in 2019 when James Gladstone and Liam Cohen were both there. Forces a fumble on Tom Brady in the Super Bowl that year. Goes on, gets cut the next year, gets added to the Jets, spends a year as a rotational guy, and then starts multiple seasons. Gets traded to Denver around draft time in 2024, and then sets the career high in sacks last year with 7, and then beats it this year with 7.5. He's not your traditional edge in the sense that he's kind of a bigger body. He rotates inside on a lot of passing downs. That's kind of where he does his best work, is as, that kind of third down nickel interior pass rusher. He's absolutely phenomenal at it. Was a big reason the Broncos were able to get so much pressure. Obviously, they had a star-studded defensive line. And pretty much everybody on that line, especially the starters, is a Pro Bowl level player. But John Franklin Myers and his ability to give them a rush inside along with Zach Allen was absolutely huge. And I think when you just look at his skill set, he is the perfect kind of candidate for the Jaguars to add. There's a reason why they went after guys like DeJuan Smoot and Emmanuel Ogbah last year. There's a reason why they aren't adding these 225-pound, 230-pound pass rushers. They asked their edges to do a lot in the run game. If you're going to play with a 4-man front, that's what you need to do. Because you're opting, obviously, as opposed to a 3-4, they're more or less in a 4-3 most of the time. You're opting to have one less defensive lineman on the field. Your edges need to make big plays against the run. And they do. Trayvon Walker had a great year against the run. But if you watch closely and see how they deploy guys, there's a lot of two-gapping. There's a lot of playing 4-eye. That's why Trayvon Walker is such a good fit in the scheme. And then Emmanuel Ogbah and DeJuan Smoot were bigger bodies who could play with power, who could anchor against the run. And that's why the Jaguars obviously felt comfortable with them in their roles. So, ultimately, for the Jaguars, I think Franklin Myers is just a guy who fits that perfectly. He's a bigger body. He can play on the end on base downs, part of a rotation with Trayvon Walker and Josh Hines-Allen. And then when you're in passing downs, you can have those 3 guys together on the field consistently. And they can wreak havoc. I think if the Jaguars had an interior pass rush against the Bills, I venture to say they win that game. So ultimately, I think that has to be the priority for the Jaguars. It's not a great free agency class. It's not a great in terms of, even those top flight tier free agents. And I'm not saying that they should absolutely break the bank or anything like it. But I do think if there's one guy who they should pursue in free agency who's going to get something close to a big-time deal, I think it's John Franklin Myers. He has the fit in terms of need. He has the fit in terms of the scheme. He would make the Jaguars so much more dangerous as a third down unit and as a pass rush unit. He's going to be 29, so you can still obviously get several years out of him. I mean, I think it's clear as day. And I'm not saying, obviously, that I think they're going to do it or anything like that. He's the guy to me who makes the most sense. Thank you guys for listening to today's episode. My name is John Shipley, and as always, we'll be back next time.